Some stories you forget, but this one, it will haunt you forever. In the quiet suburb of Chestnut Hill, Philadelphia, the Henderson family moved into their century-old colonial on Germantown Avenue with dreams of fresh beginnings. Sarah and Michael Henderson, along with their 10-year-old twins, Emma and Jack, had chosen the historic district specifically for its charm and character. The house stood tall, with its brick facade and black shutters, nestled between equally distinguished homes on the tree-lined street. The realtor had mentioned the home's rich history with a practiced smile, but glossed over specific details that might have given the Hendersons pause. On their very first night, as the moving boxes still formed maze-like corridors throughout the rooms, Emma woke with a start. The digital clock on her nightstand blinked, 3:17 a.m. in harsh red numbers. A sound had disturbed her sleep, faint but distinct, like someone dragging something heavy across the hardwood floor directly above her bedroom. Emma stared at the ceiling, her breath held tight in her chest. There shouldn't be anyone up there. The third floor was nothing but storage space, and a small room they hadn't even explored yet. Sarah discovered the first troubling sign the next morning while organizing kitchen supplies. A child's drawing had somehow slipped between the cabinet and wall. Yellowed with age, it depicted a stick-figure family standing before a house that looked remarkably like their new home. What caught Sarah's eye wasn't the crude artwork typical of a young child, but rather the dark figure looming in what appeared to be an attic window, its elongated arms reaching down toward the family below. She dismissed it as an odd coincidence and tucked it into a drawer, focusing instead on the practicalities of settling in. Michael threw himself into home improvement projects, determined to address the house's quirks. The inconsistent water pressure, the occasional flickering lights, the peculiar cold spot at the top of the main staircase, all were chalked up to the eccentricities of an older home. When he mentioned these issues to their neighbor, Mrs. Winters, an elderly woman who'd lived on the street for over 40 years, her expression tightened. "The Prescott house has always been particular," she said, her fingers nervously twisting the pearl necklace at her throat. "Not every family stays long." The twins adjusted to their new school with typical resilience, though Jack began having difficulty sleeping. "Someone keeps opening my closet door," he complained one morning at breakfast, dark circles forming beneath his eyes. Sarah checked the hinges, finding them worn but functional. "The house is settling," Michael explained, ruffling his son's hair reassuringly. "Old houses make all sorts of noises." But that night, after the children were asleep, Sarah and Michael heard it too. The unmistakable sound of the closet door in Jack's room, slowly creaking open. By the time they rushed in, the door stood ajar, though Jack remained asleep. Michael installed a small hook and eye lock the next day, dismissing Sarah's concerns. "It's probably just uneven floorboards," he insisted. "The door is sliding open on its own." 3 weeks after moving in, Emma made a discovery while exploring the narrow staircase leading to the third floor. Hidden behind a loose section of wallpaper was a small door, no more than 2 feet square. "Dad," she called excitedly, "I found something!" Michael examined the miniature door with curiosity, assuming it was a forgotten storage space, common in homes of this era. Using a screwdriver from his toolbox, he pried it open to reveal a small, dark cavity. Inside lay a single object, a child's diary, its leather binding cracked with age, secured with a tarnished brass lock. The name, Catherine Prescott, was inscribed in faded cursive on the cover. Sarah felt a chill as Michael turned the diary in his hands. "We should try to find the family," she suggested. "Return it to them." But something in her voice betrayed her discomfort, an instinctive desire to remove the object from their home. Without the key, the diary remained sealed, and Michael placed it on the mantelpiece, intending to research the Prescott family's history. That night, the entire house seemed alive with noise, creaking floorboards, tapping against windows, and a strange, rhythmic scratching from within the walls. Sarah woke at precisely 3:17 a.m., her skin prickling with goosebumps despite the warm April night. Michael slept soundly beside her, but something compelled her to check on the children. Emma's room was undisturbed, the girl sleeping peacefully amid her stuffed animals. But Jack's room felt unnaturally cold. The boy sat upright in bed, staring at his closet door. Despite the lock Michael had installed, it stood open, swaying almost imperceptibly. "She wants to show me something," Jack whispered, his eyes never leaving the dark rectangle of the closet. "Who does, sweetie?" Sarah asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. "The girl who cries in the walls," he answered simply. The following day, Sarah contacted a local historical society, desperate for information about their home's past. The building's history was largely unremarkable. A merchant family in the 1890s, followed by a succession of owners throughout the decades. But the historian's voice changed when Sarah mentioned the name Catherine Prescott. "That would be Edward Prescott's daughter," the woman said carefully. "The family lived there in the 1930s. It was quite tragic, actually. Catherine disappeared shortly after her 12th birthday. Some suspected she'd run away, but the historian paused. Well, her body was never found. The family moved away soon after." Sarah's hand trembled as she hung up the phone, her eyes drawn to the diary still sitting on the mantelpiece. That evening, as twilight cast long shadows through the windows, Emma approached her mother with a troubled expression. "I made a friend upstairs," she admitted. "She said wants her book back." Michael dismissed his daughter's imagination at work, but Sarah wasn't so certain. The diary had somehow migrated from the mantelpiece to the dining room table, though no one admitted to moving it. The lock, previously secured, now hung open, revealing pages filled with a child's handwriting. Sarah hesitated before reading the entries, feeling like an intruder in someone else's grief. The diary belonged to Catherine Prescott, age 11, chronicling her life in 1937. The early entries were mundane: school activities, arguments with her parents, games with neighborhood children, but the tone shifted dramatically in later pages. "Father has changed since the accident at his factory," one entry read. "He watches me constantly. Mother pretends not to notice how his eyes follow me from room to room. I've started locking my bedroom door at night." The final entry, dated June 17, 1937, sent ice through Sarah's veins. "I found a hiding place where Father can't reach me. The space behind the wall in the upstairs closet is bigger than it looks. I can hear him calling my name, searching the house. I won't answer. I'll stay here until he stops being angry." After this, nothing but blank pages remained. That night, Sarah confronted Michael with her discoveries and suspicions. "What if she never left that hiding place?" she whispered, mindful of the children sleeping upstairs. "What if she's still in the walls?" Michael rubbed his temples, exhaustion evident in the lines of his face. "Sarah, that's impossible. The police would have searched the house. Someone would have found her." But doubt had taken root in his mind as well. The unexplained noises, the cold spots, Jack's insistence about the girl who cries. It painted a disturbing picture he could no longer ignore. After the twins were asleep, Michael and Sarah examined the upstairs closets more thoroughly. In Jack's room, the closet revealed nothing unusual, just clothing and toys pushed against the walls. But in the hall closet, Michael discovered a section of baseboard that didn't quite match the rest. Using a pry bar, he carefully removed the wooden panel, revealing a narrow opening. The beam of his flashlight illuminated a small crawl space between the walls, large enough for a child to slip into. "This must connect to the other hidden door Emma found," he whispered, his voice tight. Sarah peered over his shoulder, her heart pounding. "Michael, I think I see something." Deep in the crawl space, partially obscured by decades of dust, lay what appeared to be a small bundle of fabric. Michael steeled himself and reached in, his fingers closing around what felt like cloth. When he withdrew his hand, he held a child's hair ribbon, once white, but now yellowed with age. Sarah covered her mouth, stifling a sound between a gasp and a sob. That night, the noises intensified. Scratching, tapping, and a new sound, soft weeping that seemed to emanate from every wall simultaneously. At exactly 3:17 a.m., Emma screamed. Sarah and Michael rushed to her room to find their daughter standing in the corner, pointing to the ceiling where a dark, wet stain was spreading across the plaster. "She's trying to show us," Emma whimpered. "She wants to come out." The stain grew before their eyes, water dripping onto the hardwood floor with a rhythmic patter. Michael touched it cautiously. Not water, but something darker, thicker. The metallic smell of old pennies filled the room. Emma looked at her parents with frightened eyes. "Catherine says her father put her there. She says we need to tear down the walls to let her out." The following day, Michael contacted a contractor, inventing a story about suspected water damage and possible mold in the walls. The man arrived promptly, equipment in tow, but his professional demeanor faltered as he entered the house. "Something feels off in here," he remarked, glancing nervously at the ceiling. "Like the air is too heavy." He followed Michael to Emma's room, where the stain had dried to a rusty brown color. Using specialized tools, the contractor carefully cut into the ceiling, revealing the space between floors. His flashlight beam swept the darkness until it caught on something that made him recoil. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, before turning to Michael with a grim expression. "You need to call the police, right now." The discovery of Catherine Prescott's remains made local headlines. The small skeleton, still clothed in the remnants of a 1930s dress, was carefully removed from the space where she had been sealed alive over 80 years ago. Forensic analysis would later confirm that she had died of dehydration, trapped in a space her father had deliberately sealed after her apparent attempt to hide from him. Among her remains was a small brass key, the missing key to her diary. The Hendersons temporarily relocated to a hotel while the police investigation continued. Historical records revealed that Edward Prescott, Catherine's father, had reported her missing on June 18, 1937. The family moved away 6 months later, with no suspicion ever falling on Edward. He died in 1952, taking his secret to the grave. The diary provided the only testament to Catherine's fear of her father and her final, desperate attempt to escape him. Sarah and Michael debated selling the house, but something held them back, a responsibility they couldn't quite articulate. "We found her," Sarah said quietly as they discussed their options. After all this time, someone finally heard her. They decided to return, to honor Catherine's memory, rather than abandon her again. The house felt different when they moved back in, lighter somehow, as though a long-held breath had finally been released. The mysterious noises ceased. The cold spots disappeared. Jack slept peacefully through the night, his closet door remaining firmly shut. But occasionally, in the soft light of early morning or the gentle hush of evening, the faint sound of a child's laughter could be heard drifting through the hallways. Not frightening, but peaceful, a reminder of a presence finally at rest. In the backyard, beneath an old oak tree, the Hendersons placed a small memorial stone for Catherine Prescott. Emma sometimes left wildflowers there, arranging them in careful bouquets. "Do you think she's still here?" she asked her mother one afternoon, as they watched butterflies hover over the flowers. Sarah considered the question thoughtfully. "I think a part of her will always be here," she answered. "But not because she's trapped anymore, because this is where she was finally found." The Hendersons remained in the house on Germantown Avenue for many years after, becoming part of its long history. They shared Catherine's story respectfully with those who asked, ensuring that the tragedy hidden within its walls would never be forgotten again. And sometimes, on quiet nights when the moon cast silver light through the windows, Sarah would wake at exactly 3:17 a.m. with the distinct feeling that someone was watching over her family, not in malice, but in gratitude. Years later, when the twins had grown and moved away to college, Sarah discovered a faded photograph tucked between the pages of an old book on their shelf. A black and white image of a solemn-faced girl in 1930s clothing, standing before a familiar house. On the back, in childish handwriting, "Thank you for finding me." Sarah never showed the photograph to anyone, not even Michael. Some connections, she felt, were too profound for explanation. The house on Germantown Avenue continued to stand tall among its neighbors. Its dark secret finally laid to rest. Its century-old walls now bearing witness not just to tragedy, but to healing. And if sometimes the neighbors noticed a small figure watching from an upstairs window when the house was supposedly empty, they simply nodded in acknowledgement and continued on their way, understanding that not all presences are meant to be feared. Hit subscribe and don't dare miss what's coming next. Or the next scream you hear might be your own.